welcome to MAFFS. I like that. What do you guys think of that sound? Too much? Little too old school, like Frank Sinatra vibes?
I think not too much, not enough. I reckon it's just perfect.
Oh, okay, good. See, already we're giving ourselves 5 stars straight off the bat. A good self-review. Teo Pellizzeri in Melbourne. How are you doing, mate? No, you're in Sydney.
My
apologies.
That's all right. I'm proud and happy that you thought of me as being in Melbourne, a Victorian. Look, great intro. Jeff Hopkins will love it because it's the Family Guy theme. And I think that, no Josh Parrish this week, so everyone's got to step up. I know that you had Debano last week, and I got a week in the Magoos. So I've gone back. I've had my 40 touches in the VFL, and now I'm back in the ones ready to have a good crack at it.
How are you feeling? Are you feeling fresher now?
No, actually. I worked 2 early morning starts this week. If you enjoyed the 0-0 draw with 1 shot on target, Celta Vigo versus whoever they were playing in La Liga, that was me editing that mini match. So, let's keep up the good work.
1 shot. That is rough. That is rough.
Put it this way: I put a guy doing a step over in as a highlight because there was just so little goal mouth action.
All right.
Most La Liga games are pretty good. But that one, maybe at the other end of the scale.
In the comments, so people watching on YouTube and people watching on Twitter and stuff, if people could comment on what is the worst thing that they've ever seen in a highlights package. What is the lowest bar that has made it? Has a shot that's gone out for a throw-in made the highlights package? Has, a throw-in made the highlights package? Has just a random tackle in the middle of the field made the highlights package? I'm not talking about like a red card, yellow card. I want to know the lowest bar, and you were like, how did that make the highlights?
I have a game that immediately comes to mind now that you've jogged my memory. It was Nations League, and it was Andorra against one of the other small countries, Moldova. I think it was Andorra versus Moldova, and I ended up just putting in the 50-50s. There was so little goal mouth action, and these teams were so clunky and sort of aggro that there was some real reducers and just badly timed tackles, and the ref was pretty lenient, didn't send anyone off, and I just started having fun with it. This highlights package, we're just going to go for the rough stuff, and you know what? I actually think the Nations League is a stroke of genius because you actually get close competitive games with those teams, even if the quality is a little lacking, and as we know, Sweden's going to be winning Nations League Group D and playing against the likes of Moldova and Andorra in just a few years' time, if the last week of news is anything to go by. So at least I'm ahead of the curve doing my homework on it.
Paletti via YouTube says Sharon violation and it's been less than a minute.
Well,
yes, but we
always follow other podcasts that let you follow and comment live, mate.
Yeah, but look, I would also say that we've also referenced Moldova and Andorra. So, that's pretty early doors. Celta Vigo as well. So we're going all around the globe. One thing I do remember, so when I used to work at SBS, we used to do minute 30 highlights packages, and we had to keep it under a minute 30 because that was the only, legally, we only had the right to a minute 30 of vision, right? And oftentimes it was so hard to keep all the glorious action that was happening in, A-League football or Premier League football under a minute 30. So difficult. But I remember one game, which was, I think it was a Mariners-Jets game, and it was very easy to keep it under a minute 30. In fact, it was very hard to get it to a minute 30. I think I had 1 shot in the entire highlights package, which I showed 2 replays of. I think it was a straight at Mark Birighitti, straight into his chest or something. But it was the famous game where Alu Kuol, I think, made his debut, and he gave an interview with Robbie Slater at the time, and it was hilarious. So I ended up putting the interview as, I think, most of the highlights package. So it was essentially a 20 seconds of just someone having a shot straight at the keeper, 0-0, final whistle, straight into, here's Alu Kuol for 3 minutes. Just so raw and ready, and it was one of the all-time great interviews. So...
but on that, I know that, Australian broadcasters, of course, I'm going to stick up for them. My conflict of interest is considerable. But the walk-off halftime interview is one of the ones that reliably gets people on social media quite exercised. Why do they do these? There's no point to them. You know what they did in La Liga for every game that had a sideline reporter this weekend? They had the walk-off interview, and it was one question in Spanish with no translation. So I don't know what they said as they walked off at halftime, but I would argue that is Australia ahead of the curve, people, and our broadcasters ahead of the curve. If La Liga, which I think, can rightfully claim to being the second best domestic league in world football behind the Premier League. I don't know if I'm getting an argument here. So
Nick
if
DeBarno's not here.
yeah, no, just his
Nick
proxy.
DeBarno would say the AFL is the second best league behind the Premier League.
Behind the Victorian Premier League.
No, well, sorry, NPL 2 is what he would suggest. But
That's right.
So La Liga's doing the walk-off interviews at halftime, and if the Premier League starts doing it, if the Premier League starts following the broadcast innovations that Australia did first, all of a sudden the Euro snobs might be hoisted on their own petard.
It is a weird thing to get upset about. Like, why would you get so annoyed that there is a halftime interview? Was there something else that you think should have been happening at the 1 minute after halftime? I still remember the great Stefan Mork halftime interview where he said that's why no one likes Neil Kilkenny. And then Neil Kilkenny fired back at full time and was like, well, that's why we got rid of him or whatever else. That's why
wasn't that the infamous go and write it in your journal comment?
Oh, that was go and write it in your journal.
Yeah.
This is, you know what? One day someone needs to do like a ranking of just the best sledges and beefs that we've had over time in Australian football. Like, we've had some bizarre ones. I even remember, I mean, it came up the other day, but the kind of the Twitter spats that used to happen, like, you know, commentators going at each other on Twitter and, you know, I mean, the famous one was
Are you saying that our discourse is poorer for the departure of Ezekiel Trumper, and we need to bring back some of the great antagonists of soccer Twitter? Where ECP Coco has been gone for the best part of 2 years.
Ezekiel Trumper, I mean, I think I muted him a long time ago, but he did threaten to sue everyone, right? I want to know. Let us know in the comments. Were you ever actually brought to court by Ezekiel? Like, did he ever go to court to take someone for Australian football? But no, I mean, those guys were like the whack jobs of Australian football. I mean, like, you know, like, remember when like Robbie Slater and like Foz just had a go at each other on Twitter, like 2014 or something? No, it was Jim Magilton era Melbourne Victory. And I was like, the fact that anyone wasted oxygen on a Twitter spat about Jim Magilton, of all the coaches that have been in this league, and it ended up making like the back page of the paper. It was, you know, it's ex-Socceroos calling each other out and you know, Australian football, we need more of that. I love little rivalries. I love to get the popcorn out. I love to see a just ridiculous argument, two huge personalities going at each other. I mean, I remember Danny Vukovic, who was, I think, a player at the time with Perth Glory, having a go at like Ned Zelic's commentary or something, and then Ned Zelic fired back. Just sensational times. I think we need more of it. Everyone's called for unity and harmony. That's not fun. What is fun is people going nuts over nothing. So maybe we should have like meltdown of the week or something. Maybe we should try and encourage it. I don't know. What do you think, Joe?
That seems to be courting hubris in an extraordinary fashion, Stoll. You're welcome to stand on that corner. I might let that through to the keeper.
Joe, do you like a good Twitter spat?
Oh, I love it. I think I brought up a couple of weeks ago Scott Munn, the new chairman of Tottenham, having a go at George Columbaris. I mean, a celebrity chef and a chief executive of a football club. You can't get much better than that.
Look, comments are flying in. Daniel says, A-League of the World Series cricket of football. So many innovations. Yes, exactly. Charmander, the Andy, says, imagine if the refs went back at Perth Glory for their shenanigans on Twitter. No, but I think the Perth Glory are encouraging the refs. I mean,
exactly.
I think it comes from a place of love with the Glory. You know, their media department is quite senior, you know, knows everyone who's anyone in the league. It's not like it's, you know, a new idea in the sense that it's someone trying to have a bit of fun at the referee's expense. I think it comes from a place of love and respect. And let's not forget, Perth's very isolated. So the WA, you know, the top WA referees, you know, they've done well to get their name up in lights, whether it's Arvind Shanmuganathan on the sidelines or Stephen Skinner, the fourth official. You always see their names on the team sheet for the Glory. And as someone who's going to be commentating 6 Glory games in 6 weeks between the middle of February and the middle of March, I am becoming very familiar with everything Glory over the course of this A-League season.
Late night A-Liga with Teo Pellizzeri. You love to see it. Hey, Joe, what made Australian football fun this week for you?
It's a good question, Nick. It's one that I haven't thought much about, but can I tell you? Can I kind of flip it on
premise
you?
of the show. Only the premise of the show. Otherwise, we're flying.
No, that's right.
Only the thing that we are.
For those,
literally the only thing. If you ever come on this show, you only need to prepare one answer. Oh,
listen, I thought that I was going to be late. I got home with the speed of light to make this one, but I remembered. I did have one, and I've just remembered, and it's my boy Alex Paulson, because he saves another remarkable penalty this week, and I've been clamoring all year about his highlights package, and I've seen a few people have picked it up on Twitter as well. He has been a rock for my boys, the Knicks, this season. He's kept them in a lot of games, and what a save as well. And then another thing that I like about him, he's ice cold. I mean, we all here on Make Australian Football Fun Society.
Everyone is over there.
Yeah, that's right. We like a bit of shenanigans. We like a bit of, playing up the big saves. It doesn't phase him. He just gets about his business. And yeah, he's done it again.
I think it's really amazing. And what I think is really cool is that people are now getting onto this 3-minute highlights thing. We talked about it with Iran Kunda, right? And the 3-minute highlights package. I think we now need to start thinking, this is the modern world, all right? Coaches, scouts, they don't have time. There's too many players out there. The 3-minute highlights package is key now. I want players to be thinking about, how can I make my 3-minute highlights package up? You might be doing, 96% passing accuracy. That's not going to make your highlights real. We need highlights. Iran Kunda, the human highlight. I think that's what Iran Kunda needs a good nickname. And I'm thinking human highlight is where I'm going to go with him. But Alex Paulson, the other thing about him that is really good is the hair. The hair is big. And I've always been a thing of, if your kid is talented and he's coming through the ranks of Australian football, you've got to give him a crazy haircut. You've got to make him stand out from the others. The ones that I'm talking about, Marouane Fellaini, you never didn't notice him on a football field. David Luiz probably got a little bit more criticism than he deserved just because of his hair. Because when he was out of position, and all players are out of position from time to time, his hair was just so noticeable. Mustafa Amini, maybe that's why Dortmund picked him up initially, because he really caught the eye with his hair. And Alex Paulson kind of has that. But you're right, he has been doing exceptional this season with the penalty save, Joe.
And just on Paulson, and I might throw to you here, Teo, because you are our expert commentator on the show. The commentator over there in New Zealand calling this game, I'm not sure exactly who it was. I believe it was
Daniel McCarty.
Mate, he gave me chills that game. He was up and about. He was loving it. What did he say? Build him a statue. It was magnificent.
Oh, hang on. Build him a statue. That's a bit ironic, because the last guy I know called Paulson, he went and destroyed a piece of corporate art, and it didn't turn out too well for him either.
But this is a new era.
Can I just also say, is this also the lowest bar for someone to have been built, like to get the build him a statue thing? Like his first season or second season, he saved a couple of penalties. Now I love it. Let's go early on statues. I mean, everyone's talking today about we need better pitches, right? We need better grounds. We need boutique stadiums. We need cheap boutique stadiums that generate heaps of cash, that have the perfect surfaces and are centrally located. That's all we're asking for. I mean, despite the fact that no one seems to have any money, but that's right. That's right. We've got a billionaire from from America, who's investing in Auckland. Stadium's coming. But people are thinking too small. Stop worrying about pitches. Worry about statues. We need way more statues outside our grounds. And Alex Paulson, maybe do you think if you save a penalty, is that an automatic statue build now?
Well, but I think that if all it takes is one sculptor. I mean, the Taylor Harris statue, no, I'm being serious, was the best thing to happen to the AFLW, because it created this cultural cut through where a gazillion trolls under the sun were always going, bro, why is she getting a statue? And it just perpetuated this news cycle, which was its own publicity. So maybe the Paulson statue is not actually the worst idea. Yes, you have to get commissioned for art, and artists are already struggling to earn a living. And expensive. Putting something in a public space requires permits and what have you. But do you really think if organically someone went and built a statue of a footballer and put it in a public space, how long really would it take that municipality to come along and clear it out? If someone snuck a Courtney Vine statue up to Suncorp of her scoring the winning penalty and just left it outside the ground, how long do you really think it would be before the Queensland government came and took it away?
Yeah, like the graffiti version of statues, like sneaking in at 3 a.m. just to plan, I don't know, John Cosmina choking Kevin Muscat at Marvel Stadium.
They're popping up like mushrooms all of a sudden.
I love the idea of a father taking his child to Sky Stadium, their first game, next week, and they're like, "Daddy, who's that? Who's that man? Who's that man on the statue?" That's Alex Paulson. 5 games for the Phoenix. He saved 2 penalties. He's a hero around here.
I mean, okay, this is another one for the comments. Who do you want to see get a statue? And the lower the bar, the better. So,
yeah,
I'm thinking like Benito Carbone's 4-game stint at Sydney FC, or who came to the A-League, just played 1 game, left, was amazing. Never to be seen again. I mean,
I'm pretty sure Jonathan Brew has a statue outside the PFA to represent all players' rights when a club tries to freeze them out. It's just him jogging laps on his own. That's the statue.
We'll put it at the training ground. Anyway, Taya, what made Australian football fun for you this week?
Someone with a lot of money coming to the A-League and saying, "I am going to unzip and flop it out, and then here is my cash."
Jesus.
I listened to the full press conference, and it is genuinely good to hear that this Auckland team is going to be backed by someone who has a track record of having been there and done it, is invested in football and wants to build his own, sort of CFG proxy. And say what you want about the franchise system and this and that, but at the end of the day, this team is going to come in seemingly at the top in terms of resourcing, in terms of recruiting. Speculation already about who's going to coach, and obviously they're going to have to draw some Kiwis back from overseas. But I think the A-League men's has never been more winnable if you get your foreign signings right, and all they need to do is replicate what Western United did: a good keeper, equivalent of Leo Lacroix, equivalent of Alexander Prijovic. A decent midfield. Everyone is saying Marco Rojas is going to Auckland. This team could win the league in its first season. And I actually like the ambition, and I like the idea that Bill Foley is shooting his shot, because after 2 teams that have not really lifted the average coming in the last round of expansion, the idea of a team coming in as a new benchmark is quite exciting. And I can only ever use Melbourne City introducing their women's team as like the best example of when an expansion team came in and raised the bar for everyone. Why can't we have that in the A-League men's? It would be bloody awesome to see it.
Yeah, totally. And, the other thing as well is Auckland is kind of weird that it doesn't have an A-League team. I mean, it's the 5th biggest city in Oceania or whatever. So it's including all the Australian cities. It's bigger than Adelaide, for example. And it kind of, I would think I think it's going to be good to have a rivalry with Wellington. So in terms of the details, when exactly are they coming in? And
next season.
Do they have a stadium all sorted? Everything's good to go?
They're going to use Mount Smart, which is where Wellington played their games at the weekend. And funnily enough, the New Zealand National League...
Look out for a new statue.
Of
Alex Paulson.
Well, the New Zealand National League Grand Finals were played there on the Sunday, and those games were actually free to watch on FIFA Plus, and due to the time difference, they were on in the morning. So I had a quick look, just because there were a few ex-NPL guys like Hamish Watson and Ryan DeVries playing, and there's a guy called Bezikas who plays for Wellington Olympic, and he's kind of... Well, he used to be a Phoenix Youth. He's kind of like, I don't know, Costa Barbarouses from Wish. And I was wondering why he had, as a Greek New Zealander playing in the New Zealand National League, I'm at a loss as to why he's never played in NPL Victoria. He seems to tick all the boxes for what NPL Victoria clubs love when they go to recruit a player. But yeah, look, it wasn't the highest standard game. The crowd wasn't great, but I found it fun. I mean, Auckland City, the commentators mentioned, this is a big tangent, but Auckland City was playing Wellington Olympic in this final. And Auckland City, they said, had never lost 3 games in a row in New Zealand. And for whatever reason, they're playing in this final off the back of a 2-game losing streak. Don't ask me how they got there. But Wellington Olympic were 1-0 up. Auckland City were just piling forward. Then they put the keeper forward. And with the last play of the game, Wellington Olympic ran the length of the field and scored into an open net ice hockey style. And I thought, what a beautiful tribute to Bill Foley that you had, pulling the goalkeeper and leaving an empty net at the end of the New Zealand National League Grand Final. It would have warmed his heart, the owner of the Vegas Golden Knights, to see football replicating ice hockey on such a big stage.
I do want to see more American owners. I think we need owners at Newcastle Jets. We need owners at Perth Glory. I can't remember which other teams need owners, Canberra United or whatever the Canberra team. We need new owners, right? And I feel like we've been looking. We tried Australian owners, and look, for the most part, hasn't worked out. It's been a bit hit and miss. Some owners good, some owners bad. Sometimes good, sometimes
really good.
That's good too, as I once said.
When can we have the sometimes maybe good ones?
I love the idea of American owners. 2 reasons. I mean, look at Todd Bowley at Chelsea. Absolutely lost his mind. Spent $1 billion on some pretty average players. Love that. That's what we need in the A-League. Just owners going way over with their egos. Yep. Splash the cash. All good. I also love, and we've talked about it before, American owners. One of the reasons that they are buying, football clubs now, in part, is because the real dream that they all have is to own an NFL team or own an NBA team. That's really what they're kind of practicing. They're just showing that they have ownership. We've got to know where we are in the world. But
you've got to move in those circles, and you've also got to show that you behave like an owner.
Yes.
Yes. When the players want more money, you got to stiff them. That's how you get into the NBA and the NFL.
But what I really want to see, so if we get enough American owners, we're going to get trades. We're going to get trade packages. That's really all I want to see. I mean, one of the big things in the A-League, and once we get to about round 12 or something, I'm bringing in A-League trade packages. And what it's going to be is like Melbourne Victory have traded Bruno Fornaroli for Sydney FC's Joel King or something, and the first pick of Sydney FC's academy, because we know Sydney FC academy keeps producing. We saw what happened at the Sydney Derby. Maybe you get imagine, because this is the whole thing. The picks are the interesting part, right? Imagine you got first pick of Adelaide United's academy. So you had the next Iran Kunda coming out of there. You got it in a trade package. This is what I want to see. I want to see trade packages made up. I think American owners are going to bring it. Some really good comments have come in terms of statues we were talking about before. Paletti says David Villa's statue, the caption, forever waiting to finish his guest stint at City. Maybe it's like it's only 40% complete, the statue at any time. Like it never itself is just like 40% of his body to represent the 4 out of 10 games that he played. Torres makes the point, would a Sturridge statue move more than the original? It's a good question. I mean, maybe it's him getting his haircut, because I feel like that was the most memorable thing that he did. Maybe they put it inside a barbershop. Daniel makes the point, the Souvlakis at Wellington Olympic are mint. So, it's good to know. Maybe Auckland, that they could move into that, they could look at that and go, can we bring this Souvlaki maker to the new Auckland franchise?
Go on.
Go on. No, go on.
I was just going to say, just on Auckland, I think if they're going to make a statement signing, I don't think there's ever been one more obvious than Chris Wood for them. 31 years old, born and raised in Auckland, is playing for Nottingham Forest, but he's second choice at the moment. I think it's just almost too obvious for them to bring him over.
But this is a great point, because when he comes out of contract at the end of the season and has to decide between Auckland and, trying to win promotion with Blackburn or Middlesbrough or West Brom or whichever meat grinder team, wants to, put him up top and lump it along to the big man for 46 games in the championship. Surely one of the selling points is, if you come back to Auckland, be the face of the franchise, be what Kevin Muscat was at the launch of Melbourne Victory. And we probably will, unironically, build you a statue,
literally,
and/or name one of the stands after you in this new stadium we're building. What better way to leave a legacy than to go and try and finish in the top 6 in the championship for the umpteenth season?
Well, I think what's going to happen is they'll probably put him in a trade package to Brisbane Roar for two picks of the youth team. So, you've got to be careful of that, Chris. No, it's a good point. Actually, Joe, you say he's second choice. He's actually been bumped up to first choice.
He has. That's right.
Injury to Awanui. That's why I put him in my fantasy team, and he rewarded me with 0 goals this week.
Yeah, he's not going to do much for you, mate.
Thanks. Oh, he's cheap. That's what I like about him. He's cheap. So I tell you what's made Australian football fun for me this weekend. I don't know if you've seen Ellie Carpenter at Lyon has kind of become the unofficial chant leader, it seems, after matches. They have like a kind of war cry in the Lyon dressing room.
She's Ian Healy, the Nathan Lyon of the dressing room.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, if they don't stick around like Michael Clark, she has to go at him.
Yeah.
But she's kind of doing it, but she's doing it in French, right? And I can clearly see that. I mean, by the way that the other teammates are laughing at her, it does seem like she's maybe not doing it in the exact perfect pronunciation, but I just love to see that she's having a crack at it. And even this week as well, what came out was I don't know if you saw, she did an interview in French, and people picked up on le clean sheet being a bit of a French English brought together. But what I would say, like, studying another language, is you would be surprised at how often they use English technical words, especially when it comes to football and that kind of thing. So I think it's great to see Ellie Carpenter thriving both on and off the field in France. Teo?
Dare I suggest, and my source for this is reasonable, Patrick Kisnorbo, when he first moved to France, his French teacher was trying to teach him, grammar and, conjugal verbs and, le chocolat chaud for hot chocolate, and like, they didn't get a football specific translator just to say, get stuck in. And one of the reasons that he was coming from so far back with his language skills is because they just didn't get him a football specific translator, to say, go 2-footed or whatever it is, run harder, whatever it was. And I can't help but think that that may have been a crucial oversight. And Ellie Carpenter using hybrid language where football terminology just slips in English. If that's the practical way to be the best possible teammate, then go and do it. It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like there was some kind of issues for Kisnorbo in France, given I think he won 2 games out of 30 and has now been fired. So we did joke last week that it was impossible for him to get fired. And I believe maybe the City Football Group listened to this pod and were like, what's going on down there? Okay, yeah, we need to get rid of that. So, we're very influential. Like I said last week, 10 million downloads. Thank you so much. Continue to like, comment, and subscribe. But
wait,
yeah,
did we crack 10 million downloads?
We cracked 10 million downloads. I mean,
extraordinary numbers. And yet people still pull our posts down off Reddit. I don't understand.
Yeah. I mean, some would say we didn't officially do it. I just said it because Gary Lineker said it on his podcast. But, I mean, these days, look, you can fudge the numbers any way you want. I mean,
I can tell you what's more fun.
Yeah, exactly. 10 million downloads. Hey, you know what was fun this week? Spanish newspaper, Us, compared Ange Postecoglou to Hercules, specifically the Disney incarnation of Hercules. They made a graphic of Ange Postecoglou's head on the body of Hercules, which I'm sure he appreciated, and he was cutting down the 3-headed hydra that is Liverpool, Man City, and Arsenal. Joe, you a fan of Hercules? Did you see the Disney remake?
I mean, who isn't a fan of Hercules? I feel like he's the pinnacle of athleticism, really, especially the Disney reincarnation as well. I think that's a pretty big compliment for Ange. I think if you had to kind of depict Arnie in some sort of cartoon, Hercules.
Arnie, I mean, Hercules. What is Hades?
Growing up, I am old enough that I consumed media before the internet, would you believe? My sisters were massive, massive fans of Xena and Hercules as a result. And I know Kevin Sorbo may have aged poorly for some. But when it comes to Hercules, that's who I think of rather than the cartoon one.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching that show as well. But it was interesting because when I read the article, I thought, maybe they're going to try and compare him to some kind of Greek mythology or whatever. Pretty much the only comparison they made was that Hercules is from Greece. Ange Postecoglou was born in Greece. That really, they didn't really expand on it much. They kind of explained what he's doing and Ange Ball and the phenomenon that it is. But just on Ange Ball, Joe, you're a massive Tottenham fan. 3 losses in a row now. They got Man City next. They got Newcastle coming up. They got West Ham, bit of a local derby. They got a lot of injuries. Bentancur looked really good for 30 minutes before Matty Cash tried to break his leg, essentially. And Spurs had another injury. Just how are you feeling about everything? And then the second question I have for you is, have Tottenham games ever felt so dramatic? Maybe I'm just overly invested as kind of like a super Ange fan, but it feels like every game there's, goals that are ruled out for marginal offsides. There's last minute winners or, losses in some cases. There's injuries. There's, hitting the post. Son had a hat trick of offside. How are you feeling about it all?
Look, it's on the dramatic part of it. I think the last 5 years, Spurs have never really done anything the easy way, whether it's like getting to the Champions League final off an incredible hat trick and then, conceding a penalty within the first 50 seconds. Like that's kind of the story of Tottenham in the past 10 years. So I've become numb and accustomed to this kind of drama. But in terms of Ange ball at the moment, it's very difficult because you see the team he put out at the moment. So this morning with the injuries that he had, we played Emerson Royale and Ben Davies at centre-back. So no recognised centre-back. We had no recognised defensive midfielder with Basuma suspended. However, in the first half an hour of the game with the team that he put out in unnatural positions, Kulusevski playing as the 10 as opposed to out wide, where Tottenham were on top, like by far probably the better team. It was a close game, but I think they had more opportunities to score and they were on top. So you can see that Ange has instilled this philosophy that has the players believing no matter where they're playing on the pitch, they know what to do. They know where to go. However, it comes to, there's only so many men that you can lose to injury before it starts to crack. And Bentancur going off and Højbjerg coming on. I saw someone compared the substitution was James Maddison went out and Billy Madison came on when Højbjerg played. It's just, Emil Højbjerg is a very good player, but it just shows that very good players in the wrong system look like bad players. There are no real bad players that play at that level, but he's just so not. He gets on the ball and you expect in an Ange team to look forward and look to turn. His first instinct is always to play safe. And that spread throughout the team. And I think the 3 losses, I don't think any Spurs fan is really, obviously the results are disappointing. The performances have all been good. There's not much you can do against Chelsea, which is a car crash. But
Wolves wasn't good. Wolves
was, you're right there. Wolves was a bit of a step backwards. But I think the Villa game this morning, there were how many goals ruled out for offside, how many chances creating. Son was off with his finishing a little bit. I think the performance itself, disappointing to concede those goals, but you're still positive attacking play, Teo.
Joe, during the Ashes, radicalised England fans thought that the Bazball approach was the only way to play cricket. And even as they lost, they defiantly still said that Bazball was the winner. Has Ange been embedded long enough to radicalise the Spurs fan base, a little bit like Newcastle fans or Man City fans, in that if you come for the king, you best not miss? And that Ange Postecoglou's, basically what I'm asking is there a turning point? Because I'm going to go through their fixtures later as part of this chat, and you can tell me where their next win's coming from. But for now, has he had the Bazball effect on the fan base that they will back him no matter what? Or would you feel a lot more secure if someone else was to hire Graham Potter in short order so that he's not on the open market?
No, I think he's that belief is well and truly cemented in all of Tottenham fans' mindset at the moment. And you can tell by today, with all the injuries they had, I mentioned the centre-backs, they could have played Eric Dyer. That would have been safe. He could have played Kulusevski out wide, but he played Brian Hill. He played Lo Celso, whose previous start was under Jose Mourinho about 2 years ago. So he's playing these players in positions because that's the way he wants to play. He's not playing it safe. So I think now that Bentancur's out, he's probably not going to play Oliver Skip. He might bring up Dorrington from their seconds team at the moment. I think there is no turning back, and he will play this way no matter how many limbs he has left.
Can I read you the fixtures? You can both jump in and tell me where their next win's coming from.
Please.
Manchester City away.
No chance.
No, not winning there.
West Ham at home.
Haaland, by the way, Haaland triple captain for that one. Haaland against Ange's high line. That's a 6 goals coming in that game.
West Ham at home is an interesting one because Romero will be back, Basuma will be back. They're 2 key players, and suddenly the defense looks a lot more stable. The midfield looks a lot more stable, and you still get the regular front 3. I think at home, Tottenham will win that game.
I think as well they will win that game, but I can see it being very tricky. West Ham is really inconsistent at the moment. It's very hard to kind of work out. And mention to see if Jared Bowen is still injured. But let's keep going.
Okay. Newcastle at home.
Questionable. Real
questionable. If you said away, definitely not.
Nottingham Forest away.
Oh, man, that's Chris Wood. That's the Chris Wood derby, isn't it?
So basically, do you need Bill Foley to do Ange a favour and sign Chris Wood for non-existent Auckland franchise 6 months early, and he can just come out and do pre-season in New Zealand for half a year?
I think Joe is the first person ever to go, oh, that's Chris Wood, and actually made it. All right, it's a tough game. Let's go to the next one after that.
Everton at home.
That's a win.
Everton at home. Come on.
And then 29th of December, Brighton away. So that's the next 6 games in the league.
Brighton away is not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, Brighton have won about 3 games this season in the Premier League. Yeah, it's going to be tricky. It's going to be very tricky. All of a sudden, it shows when Maddison and Van de Ven, 2 key players, go out, how thin the Spurs team look. And then with the suspensions and more injuries on top of that, it's not ideal.
Can I just say how disappointed I was that given the week that Everton has had with the points deduction and how fired up and hot their fan base was, just what a departure the actual football was. Like, as much as the fan base might have been backs to the wall, passionate, ready to explode, the players were the complete opposite out on the pitch, which is a bit surprising. Yeah,
I actually tuned into the Everton Manchester United game for about 10 minutes, hoping to see just some Everton player absolutely fly into a challenge, get the crowd going crazy. Honestly, I wanted to see like a 5th-minute red card. That's what I was looking out for, and didn't see that at all. And Everton just really passive in their defense, surprising because the atmosphere is incredible. And then as a consolation prize, I saw Garnacho score one of the greatest goals I've ever seen in the Premier League. So
unbelievable.
That was pretty much it. But yeah, it was a bit of a flat one. Obviously, they need to bring Tim Cahill back. Knows the club. All right. Is Cahill coaching? Is that?
No, I think Cahill is slowly meandering towards being president of FIFA. To be honest, like he's still involved with Qatar. I feel as though you talk about trade packages, Stoll. James Johnson, Tim Cahill, sort of Australia delegation to FIFA. I think they're going to storm the Bastille at some point or another, and you just never know how high it might rise. FIFA's off creating an AI presidential candidate. They've run out of people to run against Gianni Infantino, so this week they actually put out an AI bot that spouts cliches and talks about running for FIFA presidency. I guess after no, I won't say that.
I'll just say today I am AI.
I was going to say I won't call him Clough. I won't do him like that. But I think that Australia's never been better placed to have a couple of people in Cahill and JJ poised to ascend within FIFA, and all of a sudden now they're battling against AI rather than real people. So it's strange times.
I'll tell you what, it would be great to have Tim Cahill be president of FIFA, not because we've ever really had a good, competent, non-corrupt president of FIFA, but if they are going to be incompetent and corrupt, at least let it be one of our guys. It just fun.
I'm hiding my vision, lawyers. I'm not taking part. I distancing myself.
No, I'm in. If you can't beat them, join them.
Speaking of ex-Socceroos, I mean, I've got a Lucas Neal football kit, a Socceroos kit circa 2012. Interesting, it just kind of came out of the woodwork this week, and a lot of people have seen it. Basically, came out and explained that he's bankrupt now, and he lost a lot of money, and kind of a domino effect of bad investments or bad advice. In terms of investing in films, which a lot of kind of English footballers or English-based footballers got involved in kind of the mid-2000s. I think Gary Lineker was one of them. Alan Shearer was one of them. They lost a lot of money. And then, housing investments, and it all kind of fell apart. And he was basically explaining that he doesn't have any money anymore. And, he's just trying to rebuild his life. But what I want to ask you guys is potentially, and this is I've just kind of come up with this randomly. Lucas Neal, would you like to see him kind of back in Australia? And here's what I'd like to say. And this is on the basis, I don't even think he wants to do this, right? But media, I feel like Lucas Neal would be a good pundit.
Well, but
what do you think?
Given it's funny, I was just discussing it this morning at work. Given the fractured landscape, where is he best deployed? Because, being an A-League pundit means living and watching the A-League, and is Lucas Neal is Lucas Neal going to be connected enough to want to come back and do that, or is he going to want to leverage his Premier League experience to be a Premier League pundit, which, as we know, for an Australian, pretty difficult and would have to be based out of the UK, or does he look at a sort of a Champions League sort of option? And I don't know. I think the fracture, maybe National Second Division, who knows? But I think that the fractured media landscape means that, yes, he'd be an asset, but it's all about where he's deployed that would make him most valuable.
I think it'd be great on Socceroos games. I just like, he was, when he was our captain, I thought he was always well spoken. I thought he gave very strong opinions, which I always like in pundits. I didn't agree with all of them. I remember, especially kind of around his last few years with the Socceroos, it kind of went a bit bad, but that's okay. Like, to me, I prefer you at least speak your mind and you get out there and stuff like that. I do wonder if from the article, it doesn't seem like he's particularly interested in coming back, and his life's over there, and kids are in school. I think his kid might have been playing in the Liverpool academy as well. So look, it seems like his life's over there. I do just think it is a shame that not too many of the golden generation, the big soccer, not too many of them come back and stay.
But I want to take issue with something you raised. How on earth did investing in the movie industry in the mid-2000s go badly? Because funnily enough, just a few days ago, I watched Football Factory again, one of my favorite films. And can I take you off on a tangent? Can I ask you to rank Football Factory, what was it, Green Street Elite, and this is England?
What about Mean Machine? Do you ever watch Mean Machine?
Mean Machine was a remake of an American film that wasn't about hooliganism so much as it was about being in prison. But I thought
it's in the Marvel universe.
Because I think the Football Factory is well clear, and Elijah Wood and Green Street is terrible. And I wonder if am I on my own in that opinion?
No, that's good. It's just Elijah. Like, the reason you need Elijah Wood is because it's more Hollywood. It's more blockbuster. He was coming off Lord of the Rings into that? I mean, this has now just become an episode of the Rewatchables, but was he coming off Lord of the Rings into a movie about football hooliganism?
Well, it was made in 2005 and the Football Factory was made in 2004. So it really was, hey, let's take the Football Factory and make it more Hollywood with an American that we can sell to the United States. But they just made a far, far worse film.
Joe, thoughts on the films? Have you seen them?
Yes, I have. Look, I reckon you might be alone with Green Street. I reckon that's a pretty not well respected, but well regarded film. I think a lot of people look at that, and it doesn't have to be an amazing piece of artwork, but for what it is, I think it provides entertainment. But I just want to say that I think Amanda Bynes' depiction in She's the Man is probably one of my favorites.
It's the most violent. All right. Well, look,
I need to tell this story. I wasn't the greatest student at uni, but I don't think I've ever upset someone more in my time at university. We were discussing Bend It Like Beckham, and I said the movie's a moot point because the league they were all aspiring to play in folded. And now I can't.
Didn't they want to play in the college league?
But the American Pro League folded twice before the current NWSL finally made it sustainable. And I can't remember the name of the person, or if they even remember that they were in that class with me, or how angry, frankly, they got with me for even bringing that up. But it was kind of an example of sometimes knowing things is detrimental to getting along with people. I didn't learn the lesson, safe to say.
If you really, I love Bend It Like Beckham. Great movie. What I would say is the keeper on the match-winning free kick has an absolute shocker. Like, the fact that they couldn't retake that, the fact they couldn't all right, we need to do half an hour of reshoots just to make this look better. It's just horrendous. Just it's pure keeper error. It should absolutely be saved all day, every day. If the pundits were looking at that free kick, they would be up in arms and saying, what is this? You got to be saving that. You've cost the game. It was the final as well. You've cost the final. You've obviously lost your scholarship at UCLA or wherever they ended up going at the end of the movie.
But it's not unrealistic. I mean, we all saw Loris Karius. Sometimes life imitates art.
Hey, Loris Karius came back. All right, Loris Karius is
bigger than ever too.
Yeah, bigger than ever, but he's also dating that super famous Italian presenter in Italy, despite playing for Newcastle United. Loris Karius, remontada, big time. Hey, speaking of big time remontadas, Sydney Derby this week. Look, so all right, here's what I want to know. All the talk kind of after the game was about the goal scorer and the fact that he used to play for Sydney FC. Teo, maybe you kind of know more about this, but he was only actually at Sydney FC for 4 months, and he was actually been playing for Hakoah for a lot longer.
But the thing is, he was still there, and they still let him go to Wanderers. So, and it just because he was only there for a short time doesn't mean that it's not evidence of a trend. Aidan Simmons, similarly, Sydney FC Academy went to Wanderers. Callum Neuenhoff, Sydney FC Academy, went to Wanderers. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing that players move in order to find game time, because my big argument with Jaden Kucharski, who ironically missed the chance to put Sydney in front, was that if he'd gone to the Mariners younger, he'd be at 40 or 50 A-League games by now instead of, 15, 20? But I think that, Sydney FC, we've been crying out for them to skew younger, to give their academy products more of a chance. Unfortunately, I think results-based analysis is going to start counting against them if they're not in the top 6, if they're not challenging for the title. This is Sydney FC, we do X, Y, Z. But I don't know, that's also kind of, it contradicts an academy. Chelsea found a way to use academy products to benefit their club by selling and using the loan market and basically becoming a clearinghouse. And, they eventually got that transfer embargo for bending the rules on, human trafficking is a little bit misleading, but football sort of market manipulation, at least. Sydney FC, are in an enviable position where their academy is strong enough that you feel as though they're going to land a big sale, an Aaron Moy style sale that will pay off, a year or a couple of years worth of all their expenses in one hit if they get it right.
Yeah, look, interesting game in terms of, to be honest with you, it wasn't the most thrilling football. Great atmosphere. Another Sydney derby where the atmosphere is incredible and great turnout from both supporters, and that stadium's amazing. And then the first 45, I remember I was at the first Sydney derby in that stadium, in the new stadium, and it was the same thing. It was unbelievable atmosphere. You thought this was a huge occasion in Australian football, and then the first 45 minutes was dour. But look, Western Sydney Wanderers get the win. It is, I believe, the 4th game that they've kept a clean sheet. So they've got 4 out of 5 clean sheets. On the other side, Sydney FC, 4th game out of 5 they have failed to score in. Joe, do you think, they're just being unlucky? Are the floodgates going to open, or do they have issues there? And also on Western Sydney Wanderers, the flip side of that is, do you think Western Sydney Wanderers are maybe... Are they riding their luck a little bit? They're outscoring their XG in terms of goals created. Their XG conceded is a lot higher. Is Lawrence Thomas just having an amazing game? That's about 1,000 questions in one. Yep. So if you want to answer any of them, or just talk about whatever you want.
Yeah, I will. One thing on Sapsa, the goal scorer against his old team, celebrating. Yeah. We love that. How good was that?
Yeah,
we need more of that for sure.
Well, to be fair, he celebrated far more when he scored against Sydney FC in the NPL back in April. Like that was actually the, you didn't want me, here I am, this is my name celebration. And he did it in front of 400 people at Valentine Sports Park rather than in front of 20,000 people at Allianz Stadium.
He got that one out of the way.
Yeah.
But going back to Sydney, you were just saying the first half style very... Dull is the wrong word. It just wasn't. It just didn't have to. Both sides didn't. They seemed a bit tentative going forward, I think, and I think that's Sydney at the moment look a little bit tentative, and Wellington, they perhaps are riding their luck, but at least they're trying. In the second half, they tried a bit more to get forward, I thought, and that coming with
even
that,
Western Sydney. You just said Wellington, but that's fine.
I've got them on the mind. Where's that statue? Western Sydney. They pushed forward a bit more, and that's where the luck comes from. They're top of the table at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, but this is an interesting thing. I don't know. Tay, you made the point as well. Like the A-League right now, one of the best things that happened in the A-League is Melbourne City are crap. Melbourne City are not good this season, and that's fantastic because Melbourne City used to just, like for the last 4 or 5 years, whatever, more or less were just running away with the league relatively early in the season. This season, it feels like anyone can win. At one stage, I think on Friday night, MacArthur were about to go top of the league. Obviously, Melbourne victory equalised late. MacArthur are now 6th. I love how congested this league is. I love that you can't tell who's going to win any game. I love that Sydney FC, they put like 5 past Adelaide last week. Every other game, they haven't even looked like scoring. It's crazy.
But who's going to be bold enough to go out and make a January window signing to win this league? Because it has never been more winnable.
Auckland.
But that's also because I suspect the clubs are maybe living within their means and risk, big financial outlay to win this year's league. May not necessarily add up to them. Although some of the coaches are starting to increasingly get into scenarios where they're coaching for their jobs, and maybe Western United might fall into that category where if they can make a splash in January, they should make a splash in January.
Yeah, and you know what, as well, I think it's interesting is that already we've seen 2 coaches fired early in the season. And do you remember early in the season I was talking about, how great, there's so many goals in the A-League. There was so many shots every single game. Does seem like the teams are getting a little bit more cautious, a little bit more worried about it. And maybe that is because, there were people worried about jobs and all that kind of stuff. So look, wasn't it was a cagey game, amazing atmosphere, another amazing kind of thing for our game, but Sydney FC, I'm just a little bit worried about them. But what you can do, and they do here in Spain, is if you can't sign someone coming back from injury is as good as a signing, right? So when Max Burgess eventually comes back for Sydney FC, they can, I know we don't really make the back page much in Sydney, but a new signing has arrived, Max Burgess. So, I think maybe that could help Sydney, but it will be interesting to see how it plays out. Daniel makes a point that Wellington Phoenix to make a major draft pick in January for Chris Wood. Can you draft a 31-year-old who plays in the Premier League? We're still working it out. There's many things can change. But yeah, look, is there any other business that we need to take care of, guys? I think we've all covered it off. Anything else you want to touch on from this week's thing, Joe?
I just have one. Jing Reese scored for the Central Coast Mariners on the weekend. Was that the strangest goal that you guys have ever seen? The fact, I think it was because the ball moved in a certain way that the keeper had no idea what to do.
Yeah,
I was confused watching that.
You know what, Joe? I'm so glad you brought that up, because when I saw the slow motion replay, the way he struck it definitely looked like the ball was going in another direction. He kind of sliced it with power, and then so it almost just took a direct shot. It honestly looked like kind of FIFA 2004 when like the graphics weren't good enough and you just kind of like would hit shoot, and clearly like the physics of the FIFA world didn't exactly make sense, but it still went top corner. I'm so glad you brought that up, because honestly, when I saw that, I was like, that was a weird shot. Like that shouldn't have gone there. And I feel like everyone didn't want to bring it up at the time, but that's what we do on this show. We bring up the big
absolutely bring it up. It looked like he was playing with, what is it called, the Spin King, when you put tape on half the cricket ball. That's what it looked like he was hitting. Swinking.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what we need to do. Teo, anything came up for you?
Look, what was immensely fun, if you haven't seen Dub Zone this week, friend of this podcast, former guest, we had her first, Pakua Frimpong made her debut on Dub Zone, and Pakua was very nervous about doing live TV for the first time, but she smashed it. And as we know, Pakua has
wasn't nervous about doing this show. I feel a little bit offended,
because I think she knows that in an online environment she can be the cyber bully, and it's a little bit more difficult to just swagger into Dub Zone and start firing off. And I told her, I actually said to her pre-show, "You've just got to come at me first. You get the first one in on me, and you'll be away." But she behaved. She didn't actually go at the throat or make any comments about sussball knowledge or what have you. But I think that it was great to see Pakua on Dub Zone, but also the fun part of the weekend. We had a 4-3 in the A-League Women's, Canberra 3, Newcastle 4. You might recall when we were discussing with Pakua a couple of weeks ago, I suggested that Canberra would be the team that would have the most goals for and the most goals against by the end of the season. Losing 4-3 is a great way to keep that pattern going.
They're on their way.
They've played 4 games this season, 10 goals for, 13 goals against. What's that? 23 goals in 4 games. Their games are averaging almost 6 total goals per game. If you're only going to watch one game a weekend, make sure it's Canberra United, whoever they're playing, home or away. It's an international break coming up this week, so they don't play for 2 weeks. But as promised, the League Pass team continues to deliver. And I'm sure their fans aren't finding it fun that they're winless and bottom of the league, but they are still fun. They're fun.
Yeah. Results are overrated. I mean, look at Adelaide United. They're losing games 6. They're winning games 6-1. They're losing games 5-0. Crazy stuff. There was also an Olympico goal in the W League, which I love to see. I think it went
weirdly social. I think everyone was asleep on just how popular Amina Rekic is. She's an American who recently started playing for the Bosnian national team. And she's very popular with their teammates, but she must have struck a chord in the NWSL because the goal just went immediately viral. And I thought, it's probably not the greatest piece of goalkeeping, to be honest. But, I mean, no one cares. They were all just having fun and celebrating the fact that there was an Olympico goal.
Patrick Morrow via the comments asked, what do you think about the situation with MacArthur in the AFC? So for those who haven't caught up
Nick,
on this story,
I also think we need to drill right down into the stadium situation in Brisbane, and we need recriminations, and we need to have the not fun segment of the This is MAFFS. This is MAFFS, Patrick. Take your concerns elsewhere.
No, Patrick, do not, because I got a quick point on this. So if people don't know, MacArthur's AFC game has been moved to Bangkok, Thailand from Campbelltown Stadium. That is quite the commute for those of you who don't know where Campbelltown or Bangkok is. No, it's a tough change. But the reason is because the Australian government won't give their team visas because of kind of an ongoing political situation. Now, I'm not an expert in this situation, but what I will say is one of my favorite stories in Australian football was when Iraq came here for an Olympic playoff against Australia, I think in around 2007 or 2008, to try and qualify for the Beijing Olympics. Well, guess who managed to sneak away from the hotel, never to turn up again? That was Ali Abbas. Ali Abbas, you might remember him. He used to play for Sydney FC. He used to play for Newcastle Jets. He was a great player. He was a fun player. And he snuck out of the team's hotel with, I think, one other player. And, it was a bit of a controversy at the time because obviously he didn't get the flight back to Iraq. And he turned up in, I think, southwest Sydney, probably somewhere near MacArthur, about 9 months later. And I think he ended up playing MPL first. I love these stories. I want to see more people come here, footballers, obviously, you got to have a little bit of talent about you. Come here for one game, sneak off the plane. That's fine. Sneak out of the hotel after the game. That's no worries. And then maybe they end up turning up in the A-League and being fun. So I think it's a shame that they're not coming here. I would have loved to see them get grant visas and then overstay those visas. I know that is mainstream political opinion. Few politicians say, yes, we want more people overstaying their visas. But it's a shame that the game has moved to Bangkok. I did see that all MacArthur fans will be refunded who bought the tickets. So good luck to those three people. But good to see. Good to see a happy ending, I think. But yeah, anyway, look, hey, away trip to Bangkok. Who doesn't love that? It's going to be fun. I'm sure the MacArthur players are quite happy about this change, actually. Free trip to Bangkok. Great stuff. Hey, just quickly, we had a few more comments coming in prior to the show. Joseph Chacone said, what made Australian football fun this week? Mark Tilio featuring in the Celtic squad for the first time this season. And all the Celtic fans posting the Ian Wright, I thought you were dead meme. Mark Tilio lives, baby. He came on the 90th minute, 3 passes, 7 touches. Hopefully he can get going at Celtic. But
you've just reminded me, though, of maybe Josh isn't here because he was having a real not fun time reading more Daniel Arzani hot takes over the weekend. And when we think about, skillful Australian wingers not working out at Celtic, Arzani springs right back to the top of mind. So, Josh, hopefully Arzani can rip it up this coming weekend. And when you rejoin us for MAFFS, you'll be able to take a victory lap against all the haters and losers.
I mean, he did. I thought he did all right against MacArthur. He set up that massive chance for Fornaroli. He should have scored. So,
absolutely.
I don't know. Joe, you excited about Marco Tilio coming back?
Well, I'm excited. I'm kind of have a pause on I'm hesitant about my excitement just because I'm not sure he really gets in at the moment. I'm excited that he's fit. That is exciting, but I think it might be into the new year post Asian Cup that we really get to see the best of Marco Tilio. So hopefully he gets some opportunity, but I'm a little bit hesitant.
Hey, speaking of haters and losers, last week I was hating on.
You're talking about me?
No. I was hating on. I wasn't hating on, but Haley. I talked about going to see Haley Rozo play in the Women's Classico. She scored this week for Real Madrid, back on the score sheet. So, anyone who was hating on her for the performance last week, it just turns out that Barcelona, I believe, still has won every single game that we've played in, scored 1 million goals. So. That's the thing. But yeah, she's back 5-2 win over Huelva. So great redemption story. A little remontada there. But look, guys, if you have, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for everyone tuning in. Please rate, comment, subscribe, like. do whatever you have to
post
do.
on Reddit. Let's see if we can actually see if we can get a Reddit thread that doesn't get closed down by the moderators promoting MAFFS. Like every week, someone goes, every week without fail, someone goes, why is there a dub zone but not a man zone? Or men's dub zone or dub zone for A-League or whatever. Why don't the man tilders have their own show? Well, here you go, fellas. I mean, maybe it's not as sophisticated and slick as Dub Zone is.
Well,
but
hang on.
Hang on. I think Joe's going to summon me to the principal's office once MAFFS is over here. But I mean, I think yes, maybe there's not a straight up equivalent show, but you got to get around what's out there, and we're having fun. And you got to ask yourself, when you read social media, when you read Reddit, when you're on the match hashtag or a Reddit thread on game day, and you just see this toxic torrent of grievance merchants airing all of their problems, you've always got MAFFS. You've always got MAFFS because we always run it through the filter of what was fun this weekend, what makes it more fun next weekend. And it's a really simple formula.
Exactly. All right.
Sometimes it's so simple that I forget the premise of the show.
I am getting called to the principal's office, aren't I? Oh, yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us. Join us next week, Monday. Please share the show. We'll see you next week. Have a good week.